Ladies and gents and the rest, today we're going to be looking at 5 more units with their all 3 talents. And yeah, these guides are for the ones who want to make the decisions on their own without following any guides. So yeah, if you want to be smart ass, this is what these talents look like. Frostwolf Shaman is going to be the unit number 1. The talent Earth Shield. Grant armored to a nearby ally. Ability has 1 charge. Okay, here's a video. You see this blue, like a square looking thing? And on it you see the number. Watch this. We drop the Shaman. Shaman buffs the Drake. And now this Drake has this gray shield where the number is. That means that this Drake has armored status. Armored status gives you you take reduced physical damage from every sources. It reduces your damage by 50%. So the closest friendly unit to the Shaman will get this buff only once. You can have 1 buff per Shaman. Lightning Mastery. Ranged attack chains to 3 nearby targets. Watch. Bam, bam, bam. This is the Shaman's attack. This is what it looks like. So Shaman pretty much does this little chain lightning. The problem is that Shaman's attacks are not that strong, and usually Shaman is taken to heal, not to attack. So, but yeah, you can attack up to 4 targets if you use this talent. Next talent is Earthwall Totem. Once per deploy, place a totem that partially heals a nearby tower or base. This is what it looks like. You have a damaged core. When you deploy Shaman, it drops this totem that heals your core or tower for 10% of their health. The good thing about this talent is that it's going to be 10%, and the level of your Shaman makes absolutely no difference. So if you drop Shaman level 1 with this totem and the encounter is level 30, you're fighting against Onyxia, you will still heal your structure for 10%. That also applies to your friendly towers. So what do we take? Number 1 is Earth Shield, obviously, because that allows you to turn any unit into a great tank. And one of the most, famous strategies with Shaman is obviously Drakisat, right? Drakisat and Shaman. Number 2, you take Earthwall Totem, because this talent allows you to build decks. There are some decks for PvP. There are some overpowered, broken decks for PvP. Really easy to execute, extremely effective when you sit at your base and you spam spells with Jaina. And if somebody damages your core, you heal your core with this talent. And during the overtime, after overtime, whoever has more HP on the core wins, right? So that is extremely helpful in this case. For those who like to play passively, this is a must-have talent, but only as a choice number 2. And number 3, obviously, we don't really need it. It's super weak. You take Lightning Mastery, again, just levels and stuff like that. Smoke Bomb. Band of Thieves. Grant +1 level to cycle minis within. Does exactly what it says. If you cast Smoke Bomb on a cycle units, they get +1 level. However, this spell has 10 level cap, which means you can cast 10 Smoke Bombs on a single cycle unit, and they will gain +10 levels. Obviously, in real life, it's probably not doable, because units simply don't live that long to get 10 buffs, which means you have to cycle through your deck 10 times and cast Smoke Bomb 10 times, which is not going to happen unless maybe we have some kind of a relics, that allow us to do that or something like that. Talent number 2, Strangers in the Night. Effects apply to enemies as well. Now you use this talent when you don't want to hit something that is in front of you, like that. You hide your chickens, so the a giant wouldn't hit them, and you hide the giants so the chickens wouldn't hit the giant. Next talent is Through the Shadows. Affected minis move 50% faster until unstealthed. Alright, I'm specifically using the very slow units so that when you buff them with movement speed buff on Smoke Bomb, it increases their movement speed by 50%, but if they're slow, they're not gonna get a lot of increase. You have to use it on the fast units so they move even faster. So what do we take? Number one, I would take Band of Thieves because, again, it has a lot of use cases, and on top of just stealthing units, you can buff their levels. You can cast it on ghouls, quill boars, not harpies, the vultures, murlocs, not only on goblin sappers, right? Whoever has a trade cycle will be buffed by this spell. Number two, I would go with Through the Shadows. Again, these two talents are equal for me. Through the Shadows used to give you permanent movement speed buff even when you come out of stealth. Now it's nerfed, it only works for 5 seconds, so you pick whatever you want, but most people take Through the Shadows. And number three is Strangers in the Night. A very useful talent, but it's not popular because, again, it doesn't have a lot of use cases. Blizzard. Talent number one, Brittle Ice. Enemies within take 30% additional damage from physical sources. I mean, there is nothing to show, right? If you cast in Blizzard on something and this something is being attacked by your Huntress, for example, this something is going to get 30% more damage from Huntress's attack. That applies to siege damage as well, because siege damage turns out it is considered physical damage as well. So physical damage, melee range attacks, and siege attacks are going to do extra damage to anything that is hit by Blizzard with this talent. Next talent is Cold Snap. Freeze enemy troops in place. As you can see, it roots everything inside of the circle. It applies to ground units and flying units as well. It used to be bugged and it used to stun everything, including towers. Ooh, I miss those days. Talent number 3, Icecrown. Summons an additional blizzard at your base. As you can see, I'm gonna cast blizzard right here, right by my core. Watch what happens. Casting blizzard, and the second blizzard will always hit my core. So it doesn't matter where you cast blizzard, the second blizzard will always hit your core. In other words, if somebody is attacking your core and you cast a blizzard on your core, the second blizzard is going to be cast on your core. So you're going to cast double blizzard on your core, right? So what do we take? Number one, obviously, Cold Snap, freeze enemy troops in place. This is the best talent. It gives you a lot of crowd control. It pretty much turns melee units into garbage for 5 seconds, especially if they're attacked by range units. They're just sitting there in Blizzard looking at their enemies, killing them, right? Number two, I would go with Icecrown. Summons an additional blizzard at your base. Sometimes in some PvE encounters, again, you can cast double blizzard when you defend in your core. So this is talent number two. And number three, Brittle Ice. I have never seen any use for it. Nobody ever uses this talent, but perhaps again in the future we might find something. That is how I would go. Next unit is Dark Iron Miner, and the first talent is Gold Mine. After mining, drop a proximity mine. Damages nearby enemies when touched. So when you mine a gold, it drops the mine randomly somewhere around the node. 1, 2, and here is number 3. Okay. As you can see, let's say this mine has this radius, right? Up. And whoever steps into this zone blows up the mine and, gets damaged. Now, how much damage does this mine do? It one-shots the Kobold at even level, which means the damage is equal at least 2 miners auto attacks. I'm giving you this data so you could kind of do your calculations for the ones who, for those nerds who have nothing else to do. You can have as many mines as possible around this node. So you drop 3 mines, you keep walking, then the gold is spawned again, you drop the miner, he drops more mines and more mines and more mines. On the Rafi Basin, sometimes this full center of the map, which there's like 2 gold nodes there, could be like filled up with mines. But there is a trick how to remove all these mines without damaging yourself if your enemy spawned a lot of mines. If you take well packs and you put them on the ground where the mines are, all the mines that are in a radius of well packs, they will all blow up, but the well packs will not blow up. So you pretty much you clear this space for free and you just put your eggs there. That's how you can clear it if you want. Next talent is Dark Iron Armaments. After mining, gain armored. Okay, let's take a look. 1, 2, 3. Boom. Remember that gray shield that I was telling you about? Yep. Now your miner is armored. So what happens is, when you mine 1 gold, you get a permanent armored buff on your miner, which turns your miner into a tank. Miner doesn't have a lot of HP, but you can, it can tank a lot of damage. Talent number 3, Dwarven Ambition, gain Fury. Alright, so every time you hit, you increase your attack speed by 25%. The buff falls off when you're out of combat, or when you mine all the golds from the node. It's kind of considered out of combat too. So attack speed that you get also affects your mining, because the faster your attack speed is, the faster you mine gold. And it takes 3 hits to get 1 gold, like it does with Kobold. Really good and useful talent. So what do we take? I would go with Dwarven Ambition as number 1, gain Fury, because this talent could be used in a lot of different situations. In PvP, it's useful because if something tanks, you can do a lot of damage with this dwarf. You mine gold faster, which is helpful in PvP. Number 2, I would go with gold mines, with gold mine, because this is a PvP only talent, extremely helpful. Again, this is number 2, not because it's worse, but because it's only useful in PvP, when the Fury talent is useful all the time, everywhere. Number 3, Dark Iron Armaments. It sounds like a good talent, but I have never seen any use for it. So today I would take it as talent number 3. We don't know what's going to happen to meta and how they're going to buff or nerf this unit. Right now it's a good talent, but there's no use for it. Number 1, Dwarven Ambition. Number 2, Gold Mine. Number 3, Dark Iron Armaments. Darkspear Troll. Talent number 1, Headhunting. On kill, increase attack and movement speed by 10%, stacks up to 50%. So every time you kill something, you get a plus 10% attack and movement speed buff. For the attack speed, obviously, it's just amazing. The faster you hit, the more damage you do per second, right? But in terms of movement speed, look how fast you're going to be moving after that. So usually, the troll starts running forward ahead of the tank when he has too many stacks. Not saying it's bad, I'm just saying that breaks your positioning on the map. Just keep that in mind. Next talent is Serpent Sting, gain poison. Now, it's a very interesting talent. Look at the way it works. So your troll, first of all, your troll attacks are physical damage, right? On top of that, with this talent, you apply poison. So it's physical damage plus poison elemental damage. As you can see, it's green, so it's been poisoned by your troll. Nothing special. Now look at this situation. This is a troll that is played in the Emperor Tharizdun's deck. For those who don't know, when Emperor Tharizdun is on the battlefield, every single unit that hits with physical damage applies burning. So your troll now hits with physical attacks, with poison, and it will apply burning on top of that. Watch. See? It has a green effect, which means it's poisoned right there, and it's burning. And it's getting physical damage from the troll. So troll in this case with this talent does enormous amount of damage. This is just a cool synergy for your future decks. Next talent is Big Bad Voodoo, regenerate 20% health every second. Right there. Boom, I got poisoned, but I am not going to die. I'm just going to regen everything to full. If your troll loses less than 20% HP per second, it will never die. And also, against flame towers, this is the best tank in the game. So what do we take? Number one, we take Big Bad Voodoo right away. It's just the best talent out of these three. Like, don't even argue. You can synergize it with, for example, Cairn's buff. It adds 20% HP to your troll, which means regeneration is going to be even higher. This talent is extremely useful in PvP. Extremely useful, and it's also not extremely, but very useful in PvE. Number two, I would go with Serpent Sting, because it's just number two in terms of like number of use cases for it, right? And there is few cool synergies with that too. Like I showed you the Emperor Tharizdun and stuff like that. And number three, I would go with Headhunting. It's a really good talent. It turns your troll into a monster. The problem is that, like I showed you, your movement speed will be very high. Unless you some kind of a plain solo troll with buffs, you're just gonna go ahead of your tank and die like an idiot. It's not your fault, that's just how this talent works.